I used to believe that marriage was simple, that love, this powerful and unbreakable feeling, was enough to create a stable life together with no secrets, no lies. For the first 2 years, everything seemed perfect. The dinners together, the talks about the future, the feeling of being with someone who understood me better than anyone else. There were no doubts, no questions, at least, not in my heart. I thought I knew every piece of him, every little detail of the life we shared. After all, who would be crazy enough to hide something so important in a relationship that seemed so transparent, so genuine? But life has its own mysteries, and even the most perfect of marriages can hide a secret that, when revealed, is capable of destroying everything that was built. In recent months, a strange feeling began to haunt me, as if a shadow was hanging over me, a feeling that there was something I wasn't seeing, that something between us didn't quite fit. It wasn't a clear distrust, but rather a silent intuition, one that began to annoy me. I tried to ignore it, even convince myself that I was just being paranoid, but something inside me told me there was more to this story. I just didn't know what yet. And then everything changed. In a simple motion, an unexpected discovery made me see something I never imagined was possible. The man I married, the person I shared my dreams with, seemed to be someone completely different. And the worst part, he was hiding something very big from me. What I discovered wasn't easy to digest. And now, looking back, I wonder if I was really ready to face the truth. But the truth came to me, and there was no turning back. The unexpected discovery. The morning seemed like any other ordinary, with nothing to suggest that my life was about to change forever. I was in the kitchen, making coffee, and he was in the living room, distracted with something on his phone. Things had become so routine over the past 2 years that the little interactions between us were already marked by silent coexistence. The kind of relationship where words are scarce, but mutual understanding is there, even without being explicitly stated. At least, that's what I thought. I believed that conversations about our future, our finances, were clear and settled. We had a house to maintain, bills to pay, and in between comings and goings, love seemed to be enough to overcome any obstacle. But on that day, something unsettled me. I was cleaning out the drawers in the office, organizing some papers he never seemed to touch. Among the bills and bank statements, I found an envelope. It wasn't just any envelope, it was hidden at the bottom of a drawer, as if it were trying to camouflage itself among useless, forgotten papers. My first instinct was to disregard it. I knew he would never hide something so serious from me. But curiosity, oh, curiosity knows no bounds. Something told me that envelope wasn't just sitting there by accident, and without realizing it, I opened it. What I found inside was something I never could have imagined. Inside that envelope were bank documents, with his name on them, and an account I had never heard of before. It wasn't just any account, but an active one with a significant balance. The kind of money I never knew he had. Upon seeing those papers, a strange sensation took over me, a mix of shock and disbelief. For a moment, I felt dizzy, as if the floor had disappeared from beneath my feet. I couldn't understand how this had happened. How could he have kept something so important from me? I found myself frozen for a few moments, staring at the documents, unable to process what was happening. I didn't know what to do. I looked again at the papers, and without realizing it, questions began forming in my mind, one after the other, as if they were unfolding automatically. Why did he never tell me about this account? What is he doing with this money? What else is he hiding from me? The questions were simple, but the weight they carried was overwhelming. I felt like I was descending into a dark tunnel with no light ahead. I knew I had to make a decision, but at that moment, all I wanted was to find a rational explanation, one that would relieve me. But silence was the only answer I could hear. With my mind still full of confusion, I decided not to say anything right away. What I wanted, really, was to understand what was going on before I made any move. I watched him later that day, trying to spot any sign that he knew I had discovered the secret. His gaze seemed normal, calm, but something inside me knew that something was very wrong. He wasn't speaking, but the tension was there, in the air, hanging between us, unspoken, like a shadow. Throughout the day, I felt like a distant observer of my own life. The house, which once felt like a home, now seemed like a stage for a drama I wasn't ready to face. That night, as he was in the living room, I found myself standing in front of the mirror in our bedroom. I didn't recognize the woman I saw there. I didn't know who I was anymore. Staring back at myself, how could he have hidden something like that from me? Maybe I was naive. Maybe I had been complicit in a silent lie he'd been weaving for longer than I realized. I looked at my reflection, and I didn't recognize that woman who, just a few days ago, believed she knew everything about her husband. There was something much bigger there, and I didn't know how much more I could bear without knowing the full truth. That night, unable to sleep, I found myself staring at the ceiling, trying to piece it all together. Part of me wanted to believe that there was some logical explanation, some reason that would justify it all. But the other part, the deeper and more painful part, knew that this secret was just the tip of the iceberg. There was something much larger hidden behind that account, and like a crushing weight, I knew that sooner or later, I would have to face the truth, whatever it was. I just didn't know how much it would hurt. The silence that speaks louder than words. I watched him throughout that day, trying to piece together his behavior. He had no idea that I knew what I knew, and yet, I could feel the tension in the air. The silence between us had become deafening, more profound than it ever had been. I had never imagined that something so subtle could change the way we interacted, but there it was. Every glance he gave me seemed to carry weight. Every movement, every smile, felt like a deliberate effort to keep me in the dark. It was as if he was playing a role, pretending to be the man I thought I knew, while something inside him and now something inside me had shifted. It wasn't just that I was uncertain of what I had discovered, it was that I had entered a new realm of distrust, and I didn't know how to navigate it. There were no harsh words between us, no accusations, but every moment felt charged with an unspoken question. Did he know that I knew? Did he expect me to ask? Would he confess? Or would he continue to pretend that everything was normal? That night, I lay in bed next to him, my mind racing. I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that account, the one he had never mentioned, and all the things I still didn't know. How many more secrets were hidden beneath the surface? The problem with secrets is that they don't just remain hidden. They fester, grow in the darkness, and one day, they will break free. I knew that now, but I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't want to confront him too soon, not without understanding why. What if there was a reason? What if I was wrong to judge him so quickly? Yet, the more I thought about it, the clearer it became that my instincts weren't wrong. Something was off, and the more I waited, the heavier that silence became. The following days passed in a strange blur. Everything felt different. The simplest things became impossible to ignore. His words, his actions, his little lies. I began to question every conversation we had ever had, wondering what had been real and what had been part of some story he'd been telling me. The smallest thing could trigger the fear that there was more to uncover. When he smiled at me, I wondered if it was genuine or just another mask. When he touched my hand, I wondered if it was out of love or simply out of habit. The strangest thing about this new reality was that nothing had changed outwardly, and yet everything had. The world still went on, the sun still set, the routine of life continued. But inside me, a storm was brewing. I could feel the walls closing in, as if the foundation of everything I thought I knew was starting to crumble. But I couldn't ask. Not yet. I wasn't ready for that confrontation, not when I didn't even fully understand what I had stumbled upon. Instead, I continued to observe. I studied his every move, looking for the smallest sign, the slightest shift in his demeanor. That would give me the answers I needed. I needed him to slip up, to reveal the truth in a way that I couldn't ignore. But what if he never did? What if he kept lying, kept hiding things from me until I was too far in to walk away? The thought consumed me. In the quiet of our shared spaces, I began to feel like a stranger. This man who had been my partner, my confidant, now seemed like a mystery I didn't know how to solve. And the more I searched for answers, the further away they seemed. The truth was slipping through my fingers like sand, and I was terrified of what I might find if I dug any deeper. Investigating what he hid. The days that followed were filled with a strange heaviness that I couldn't shake. I had become consumed by that account, that discovery that seemed so insignificant at first but now felt like the key to unraveling everything. I couldn't stop thinking about it, couldn't stop questioning it. I knew I needed to understand more, to dig deeper, but part of me was terrified of what I might find. Yet, there I was, unable to resist the pull of the unknown. The secrecy had begun to wear on me in ways I didn't even fully understand. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. How could I explain to someone that I had stumbled across something so personal, so invasive, without sounding paranoid, without sounding like I didn't trust him? But how could I ignore it when it gnawed at me every second of every day? I started to search. I went through the documents again, trying to make sense of the numbers, the transfers, the strange transactions. I went back to the bank's website and tried to look up the name of the account, hoping to find something that would explain all of it. But there was nothing. It was like chasing shadows, each answer only leading to more questions. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of confusion, a sea that I had plunged into willingly, but now I didn't know how to swim out of. There were moments when I wanted to give up, to leave it alone and pretend I hadn't seen anything. But the truth had already begun to take root in me, and I couldn't uproot it, not now. The worst part was the distance between us. I could feel it growing, widening, as if we were no longer sharing the same world. When I looked at him, I wondered how many layers of his life I still didn't know. The man I thought I married, the man I thought I knew, seemed to be slipping away from me, becoming someone else, someone I didn't recognize. I caught myself wondering, who was he really? And more painfully, who was I to him now? Was I still the person he loved? Or had I become just another part of his secret? The isolation in my thoughts began to consume me. I couldn't talk to him, not yet. How could I ask questions when I didn't even know where to start? So, I kept searching. I watched him more closely, hoping to find something, anything, that would give me the answers I so desperately needed. But all I found was silence, the silence of a man who wasn't willing to admit what he had hidden, and the silence of a woman who was too afraid to confront him. In the midst of all this, I began to realize something that terrified me more than anything else. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep living like this. The distance between us, the lies, the weight of the secrets, it was all too much. I could feel myself breaking under the pressure. And the worst part, I wasn't sure if there was any way back. If you're watching this and have ever felt that sinking feeling, that emptiness of realizing you've been living in a story you never fully understood, I ask you to hold on. I'm still trying to find the strength to face what's next, and I know, deep down, you might be feeling the same way. If you've been through something similar or just need someone to listen, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. It's a journey, one where we share what we can't always say out loud. And if you feel it in your heart, share this story and leave a comment. Maybe you've been where I am now, and together, we can begin to understand the pieces we've all been trying to put together. The temptation of confrontation. There came a point when I knew I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine. The silence was unbearable. Every word he spoke, every glance, every touch, felt like it carried an invisible weight. I couldn't escape it, couldn't run from the questions that were slowly suffocating me. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was no longer the woman I used to be, but a stranger trapped in my own life. My thoughts were consumed with that account, and I could feel it eating away at me from the inside. I could no longer ignore the gnawing feeling that something was terribly wrong. He was hiding something from me, and I couldn't keep pretending. I didn't see it. I knew, deep down, that I had to confront him. But how? How could I ask him about something so painful, so invasive, without breaking everything we had built? I wasn't ready for the fallout, wasn't sure if I could handle the truth, but the truth was coming, whether I was prepared or not. There was no escaping it. I began to question everything about our relationship. The man I thought I knew, the man I had spent so many years with, now seemed like a stranger to me. The small, inconspicuous moments, the ones that once seemed so insignificant, now felt like signs of something much larger. I found myself studying him, trying to catch him in a lie, trying to find something that would expose the truth. But he was too careful to composed. It was like he had built walls around himself, and I was standing on the outside, unable to break through. I started wondering if I even knew him at all. All those years together, all those moments we had shared, now seemed like they had been tainted by something I couldn't understand. I couldn't stand the waiting. I couldn't stand the not knowing. It was slowly driving me mad. The uncertainty, the feeling that I was teetering on the edge of something I wasn't prepared to face. The love I once felt for him, the trust we had built, was now drowning in suspicion and doubt. It hurt in ways I couldn't explain. The thought of confronting him, of asking him the questions that had been haunting me, filled me with a mix of fear and rage. What if he denied it? What if he lied to my face? What if, in the end, everything I believed about him and us was a lie? I wanted to believe in him. I wanted to believe that our love could survive whatever this was. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the truth would change everything. And I wasn't sure if I was ready for that change. I spent my days in a haze of indecision, torn between wanting to know and being terrified of what the truth would do to me. But the silence, that suffocating silence, was getting harder to ignore, and sooner or later, I knew I would have to confront him. I just wasn't sure if I was strong enough to handle whatever would come next. The confrontation, the moment came. I couldn't avoid it any longer. I had spent so many nights lying awake, wondering if I was just being paranoid, if I was overthinking things. But deep down, I knew that something was wrong, that something had shifted, and I couldn't live in this state of uncertainty anymore. The silence was unbearable. I could feel it closing in around me, suffocating me. So I decided that I had to face him, no matter the consequences. It wasn't just about the account anymore. It wasn't just about the money or the secrecy. It was about us, about what we had built and what was slowly unraveling. I didn't know how to start, what words to use, but I knew that I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. As I walked into the room, my heart was pounding in my chest. I couldn't breathe. I had rehearsed this moment so many times in my mind, but now that it was here, I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I stood there, looking at him, feeling the weight of the words I was about to say. And then I asked him the question that had been tearing me apart for days. I asked him about the account, about the money, about the secret he had been keeping from me. The words fell from my lips, trembling, unsure. I watched his face closely, looking for any sign, any reaction that would give me the truth. He didn't say anything at first. His eyes seemed to darken, as if he was trying to decide what to say, how to explain. And then, when he finally spoke, his words were soft, measured, but they didn't answer my question. He denied it at first, tried to downplay it. He told me I was mistaken, that it wasn't what I thought, but I wasn't convinced. I knew what I had seen. I knew what I had found. I pressed him further, demanding the truth, but all he gave me were excuses, half-truths. The man I thought I knew, the man I had trusted with everything, was now standing in front of me, hiding behind a veil of lies. And in that moment, I realized that I wasn't just confronting him. I was confronting everything I had believed in. The love, the trust, the future we had built together, it was all slipping away. I couldn't understand how he could look me in the eyes and lie to me like that. How could he do this? How could he keep this from me for so long? The pain of it was overwhelming, like a physical ache in my chest. I wanted to scream, to throw everything at him, but I didn't. Instead, I just stood there, paralyzed by the weight of his lies. In that moment, I realized that the truth had been right in front of me all along, and yet, I had been too afraid to see it, too afraid to face the reality that the man I loved might not be the man I thought he was. As the conversation ended, I felt a numbness wash over me. I didn't know what to think anymore. I didn't know what to believe. The man I had married, the man I thought I knew, was gone, replaced by a stranger. And now, all that was left was the painful truth, the aftermath. It's strange, the way life seems to continue moving forward, even when everything inside you has come to a halt. The days after our confrontation felt like a blur, like I was walking through a fog. I couldn't grasp what had just happened, couldn't understand how everything had changed so quickly. The man I had trusted, the man I had loved, was no longer the person standing in front of me. I didn't know how to go on, didn't know how to face the life we had built, knowing that it had all been a lie. The silence between us had grown even heavier, the space between us even wider. I didn't know what the future held anymore. The trust we had once shared was gone, replaced by a cold emptiness that seemed to fill every corner of our home. I kept asking myself if I could ever trust him again, if we could ever repair what had been broken. But the truth was, I didn't know if I even wanted to anymore. The weight of his betrayal was too much to bear. I couldn't look at him the same way. Every moment we had shared, every memory we had made, now felt like a distant dream, a memory of something that never truly existed. I couldn't escape the thought that I had been living in a fantasy, a version of reality he had carefully constructed for me. And as the days passed, the pain of that realization only grew. I couldn't stop thinking about all the things I had missed, all the signs I had ignored. How many more secrets were there, waiting to be uncovered? How many more lies had I lived through without even knowing it? I was left with nothing but the pieces of a broken story, a story that I didn't know how to continue. But one thing was clear. I had to move forward. I had to find a way to heal, to rebuild myself from the pieces of the woman I had once been. It wouldn't be easy, and I knew it wouldn't happen overnight. But I also knew that I wasn't alone. If you're watching this, if you've ever felt this kind of pain, this kind of betrayal, know that you are not alone either. Our stories are meant to be heard, meant to be shared, because they are part of who we are, part of what makes us stronger. If you're here, I ask you to subscribe to this channel so that we can keep these stories alive, so that they are never forgotten. These voices need to be heard. Your story matters, and I want to hear it. Please leave a comment. Tell me your thoughts. Share your experiences. Together, we can preserve these memories, honor the pain, and keep the voices of those who have suffered alive. And if you feel moved by what you've heard, I invite you to watch other stories on this channel, to dive deeper into the experiences that connect us all. You'll find the link to our playlist in the description or in the pinned comment. Let's keep the conversation going. Let's keep the stories alive.